Hey sis, imagine 130 years ago standing in a room with other black women listening to one of the first black women's feminist empowerment speeches being delivered. What do you imagine the atmosphere was like? That's what I asked myself when I considered that 3 days from now, from the time of me writing this, marks a very special day for the history of black women. Who was this woman? What did she go on to do? And why is her address to black women so important to us today, over a century later? Notes on Black Women, which you're listening to now, was partly inspired by the very black women's history I'm sharing with you today as we end the month for the Encyclopedia of Black Women. On the 29th of July, 1895, Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin, a journalist and a civil rights activist, stood before a gathering of black women in Boston, USA. Her speech, delivered at the First National Conference of Coloured Women, was a call to action for black women of the time. It can be read in the book New Daughters of Africa on page 13, or you can tune in tomorrow when I will share the full speech that she actually delivered. Her speech was powerful, clear, and an urgent message. Black women had a duty, not only to their own self-development, but to the progress of the race. When we look at how black women are showing up today, globally, which I've shared in other essays such as Why Don't They Like Educated Black Women, or What Tyler Perry Was Too Scared to Stay in his movie Straw, as well as countless other essays I've written about black women's evolution, it does appear that black women globally have done just what she called for. We've contributed to the upliftment of the race and ourselves in various ways. Who was Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin? Well, she was born in 1842 in Boston to a black father and a white mother. So technically she is multiracial or biracial. Josephine lived at a crossroad, you could say, of race, class, and gender. So she's a bit like Dido Elizabeth Bell, who I mentioned in my last essay, Black, Woman and British. And if you want access to that, you're listening to this on YouTube, I'll try and link the video in the description box, or somewhere at the top of the video it should pop up. If you're listening to this on Substack, where this essay has been published, it will be linked in the written article. So her father was a black successful tailor and an abolitionist. Her mother was white British. She descended from early New England settlers of the time. Growing up in a privileged household for the time, Josephine, she had access to education and opportunity, but even though she had this, she never ignored the suffering of others. She went on, she got married to Pierre Ruffin. He was the first black graduate of Harvard Law School, and together they became central figures in Boston's black elite of the time. Sadly, Josephine, she did lose her husband very young, and she had to raise her children as a single mother. But instead of retreating, she pressed forward and she became a leading voice for the rights of black women of the time. She founded The Woman's Era, which is the first newspaper published by and for African American women. So today we're looking at something that's quite central to women in this part of the world and their history. So through her writing and activism, she fought for many things on many fronts. She fought for suffrage, education, civil rights, and of course, women's rights. And in 1895, she brought it all together in one unforgettable speech. It was my discovery of Woman's Era and also the works of Paulette Nardel, which is the French Caribbean advocate for black women, and in her work, Femme de la Ville, which I covered in my last essay called Black Women, Can I Ask You a Question? It was the discovery of this that greatly gave me the personal courage to create and to continue with notes on black women. So what did she do? What did Josephine go on to do? So like many of us still today, Josephine saw that mainstream white feminist movements often ignored black women's unique struggles. There's nothing new here. It's always been that way if we look through history. So she built a platform that focused on black women's voices. It was the 19th century publication of Women's Era that later became the first black women's movement, you could say. That movement became what we consider now to be black feminist thought, which when we look closely at history again, probably reached its peak around the Black civil rights movements, both inside and outside of the USA. 1894, The Woman's Era was the first paper in the USA to be published for Black women. It gave readers news, commentary, inspiration, covering everything from political rights to beauty tips. But most importantly, the publication did what it was designed to do. It gave Black women visibility and a sense of their own collective power. Next came the Woman's Era Club. Now, this was a Boston-based organisation focused on improving the lives of Black women. This is one of the earliest examples of organised Black women's activism that we can call on when we look through history. And finally, in 1895, Josephine took it even one step further. She actually organised the first national conference for coloured women, which happened in Boston. Now, this was a historic movement that laid the groundwork for future national Black women's organisations all around the world. Her first address to Black women. At the end of July 1895, at this particular conference, Josephine gave an unforgettable nugget of wisdom to Black women. She urged Black women to come together to confront both racial and gender oppression. She said, as a direct quote, "We need to talk over not only our duties to each other and to our homes, but our duties to the race and to the nation. We need to look at facts in the face and face the responsibilities of the present and future." It's the second part of this sentence that is key for us, I think. Using facts, data, and what can be proven to be true to tackle our own oppression, both racially and based on gender. This is a double-edged sword because it's also here where many Black women become unstuck, because looking at data, facts, and what can be proven to be true would mean that we are looking more closely at all men's behaviour towards us as women, which would obviously be including Black men. This is something many Black women are reluctant to do and wish to protect them, meaning Black men, which allows other Black women to continue to suffer. In Josephine's time and context, this was a radical thing to do. It was considered unladylike, too bold for a Black woman to speak this way in public. What can be said about her boldness is she knew that if Black women didn't advocate for themselves, no one else would. So not much has actually changed. Her full speech I will share word for word in a separate essay on a separate day. From reading it, it's clear that she was very bold as a woman from her time, and this is a good thing, in my opinion. So why she still matters today, what Josephine saw as her life's purpose, and how she dedicated herself to Black women shows and teaches the modern day Black woman like yourself and me 3 timeless lessons. Number 1, the power of our representation. Number 2, the importance of collective action. And number 3, the necessity of building spaces for ourselves. So for Black women in Africa, the Caribbean, the UK, Europe, the Americas, it really doesn't matter. Her legacy reminds us that our experiences, though they are varied, they are very much connected. And this is something which I also did touch on in a previous essay called Black Woman British. And again, if you're watching this or listening to this on YouTube, it will be in the description box, or it may pop up somewhere in the corner as I'm speaking now. And if you are catching this on Substack, it will be linked into the article. Whether you're fighting for maternal health in Ghana, equality in education in the UK, land rights in South Africa, or even justice reform in the USA, Josephine's blueprint still pretty much applies. Her blueprint for Black women, from looking at her speech and how she kind of operated at this time for Black women, is as follows. Create media for Black women. So as she did with the Women's Era, we must tell our stories ourselves, whether through blogs, podcasts, newsletters, however the medium may be. It's important for us to continue to create stuff that is geared specifically for us. Build organisations and spaces for Black women. So Josephine didn't wait to be included at the time. She made things more inclusive, we could say. In today's context, whether it's like a WhatsApp group or even some kind of global network, it doesn't matter how big it is, organising for Black women in any way will help with our liberation as a group of women. Thirdly, what her blueprint was about, from my opinion, is to speak the truth about Black women's experiences. She didn't ask for permission to care about feminism, politics, society, or even justice. She stepped up and she made her voice heard. You've got to love women like this, especially a Black one who took this approach for her peer Black women at the time, and also for our benefit as descendants of her. To keep this essay to a bite-sized amount today, I plan to dive into what it was that she actually said in my next essay called Lift as We Climb. Finally, I'd say, as a message for Black women today, Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin may have lived over 100 years ago, but the spirit of her is alive whenever Black women decide to gather and lift each other up. She was a woman who understood that being both Black and female meant facing double barriers, but she believed that we also carry double power when you look at her work and what she's done. She didn't let exclusion break her. She didn't let being one of the firsts or one of the only ones isolate her. And she used every opportunity she had to make room for more Black women at the table. Her question to us today, when I thought about her work and what she's done, would likely be something like, what are you doing for the Black women who will come after you? And it's a good question. So whether you're in Lagos, London, Kingston, Cape Town, it doesn't matter where you are as a Black woman, Josephine's likely question from beyond the grave as we approach the day that she gave her speech 130 years ago, which is just 3 days from now from the time of me writing this question is for you. Her fight wasn't only about race or only about gender. From what I can see, from what I understand, it was about liberation for both, being Black and female. Thank you, Josephine, for your wonderful work, and thank you for listening in. If you've made it this far with me, I will catch you in the next one. Much love, the Black Woman Essayist.